how did you achieve the professional level at, at your current niche that you're currently at? And, I'm very curious to hear whether, your career path was something that you're always planning on and that you're always striving for, or whether it was more of a, coincidence and just a result of different, different life choices and situations and so on.
I've known what I wanted to do since I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, wow, 40 years ago. So
amazing. Yeah.
I had seen a movie
Mm-hmm.
called The Idol Maker.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I've always been a huge music fan, but I
Yeah.
have zero musical talent. And I always wondered how I might fit into the world of music.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, like, when I was younger, I didn't really have any reference for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this movie, and it was about a guy in Brooklyn who made all his neighborhood, like, guys that could sing into big stars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I guess I could do something behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I knew I was going to be in the music business.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I did from there on out kind of led
Mm-hmm.
to that. When I went to college, I went to the college with the second biggest radio station in the country,
Mm-hmm.
college radio wise. Albany, SUNY Albany, the station was WCDB.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time at the radio station. I was promotions director.
Wow.
And I wrote for music magazines. So I always knew that this was what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a circuitous way to get there that I took, but
Mm-hmm.
I got there. And, it was all very intentional.
I see. I see. So how would you say, your passion for music started? Like, do you have a distinctive memory that, you saw or you heard something and you were like, whoa, this is what I want to do and I want to be associated with?
I would say listening to, like, my prime time of growing up was in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I listened to a lot of Wax Trax
Mm-hmm.
releases.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of music spoke to me in a really powerful way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything they put out was like, oh, I love that. I love that,
Yeah.
And for a while I was like, I'm going to move to Chicago and I'm going to work at Wax Trax. And that just never came about. But, but yeah, that kind of music, like industrial, like dance kind of stuff, like KMFDM,
Yeah.
Chris and Cozy, Front 242, Frontline Assembly,
Yeah.
like all of that kind of music. I was like, wow, I really like that. That's a kind of music that really speaks to me.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Have you experienced like a surreal moment where, with your career, you've achieved something or you've worked with a specific artist that you have never thought it would be possible back in your days where you were imagining a career in music?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, one of my best friends is Maria Ferrero from Adrenaline PR.
Yeah.
And she, Ministry is my favorite
Nice.
forever. And one day she called me and she was like, we're going out for dinner. And I was like, oh, I'm tired. I want to go home. And she's like, no, we're going out for dinner. And you don't say no to Maria.
Yeah.
So she gave me an address to meet her.
Mm-hmm.
And I get there and I see Paul Barker in front of me. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I saw Al Jorgensen, and Al Jorgensen like puts his arm around me. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, wild.
I can imagine that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can imagine you've went through quite a lot of this sort of starstruck moments, considering the list of projects and musicians that you've worked with.
Well,
That,
I haven't had a lot of moments like that,
yeah,
and I'll be very honest.
yeah,
I did not grow up a rock fan.
yeah.
I was a fan. I mean, I like Wax Trax and TVT happened kind of down the line, but I didn't really consider that rock.
Yeah,
Like to me, that was industrial and that was different. Like
yeah.
I work in the world of rock and metal now. If you said to me, "Do you like metal?" Actually, this is the best way to explain it. I had my interview at Roadrunner Records in 1997, and I sat down with Case Wessels. And he said to me, "Do you like metal?" And I said, "Not really. It doesn't matter what I like." And he was like, And I said, "Well, I know who likes metal. I know where they read, where they go, and that's what you need for the job. I don't need to be a fan." But what I didn't realize was the breadth of what people call metal. Like, all right, to me, Fear Factory was industrial. I was a fan. To me, Typo Negative was goth, and I was a huge fan of theirs. And I wound up being really good friends with that band.
Whoa, wow.
Like, I spent a lot of time with Typo Negative. And I'm still dear friends with Johnny and Kenny. I came to realize over the years that metal meant many different things. And so, yeah, I kind of was a metal fan, but I didn't realize it. Like to me, when you asked me, "Are you a metal fan?" it was, "Do you like Slayer and do you like Metallica?" And I still don't really care for those.
Yeah, this makes sense, to be fair.
Yeah, it's not for me, but I know who likes them and I respect them because they've been around forever and they're doing it like at a high level.
That's a very interesting point because, obviously, as you've mentioned, you have a very good professional overview in terms of the industry and, the tendencies in the audiences and what they read and how they are being influenced and so on and so forth. I'm just curious to hear how, because I can imagine that some people have questioned your understanding on this matter based on the fact that you might not have been a big fan. I can imagine people being quite, well, how you can understand that if if you're not into the music.
But I think you can only understand it if you're not into the music. Like to me, you can only be objective. Like there were some bands at Roadrunner that weren't metal bands that I was a big fan of. They didn't do very well. Like the Sheila Divine was a release off Roadrunner, and it was an alt rock release, and it didn't do very well. And I was upset because I thought it was the greatest record. I still listen to that record now.
Yeah, it's a great album. Yeah, by the way, yeah.
And Junkie XL. I worked, Junkie XL Saturday Teenage Kick. I thought that was like the best record I ever worked, but it didn't do what I thought it could have done. So I feel like you can only really be objective if you're not like a rabid fan.
Absolutely.
And there's a difference between being a fan and being a publicist.
Absolutely. And, I was really interested to hear your take on that because, and I don't know what your opinion on the matter is, but it seems that especially when it comes to, metal and rock, there are a lot of prejudices, especially when it comes to the business aspect. And there's, people are so much limiting and associating the potential and the professional expertise of people based on their personal preferences that, as you've mentioned, is an aspect that it shouldn't matter to that extent. And it's not something that happens in other sort of musical genres and niches and stuff like that. That's definitely a very, interesting topic that I like to hear your opinion on, on experienced professionals such as yourself.
And and the fact that it was very cut and dry for me, like I would go till the third song of a set when all the photographers had to leave, and I'd leave too.
Yeah.
They didn't need me there.
Yeah.
And I got plenty of sleep and I went to work the next morning and could get a lot done. I mean, if I was a fan, I would have wanted to stay for the whole set. And sometimes I did, don't get me wrong, because I'm a fan of the people in metal.
Yes.
The thing that I noticed after taking the job at Roadrunner
Mhm.
was there were no better, harder working people than in the hard rock genre.
Yes. Yes.
And I fell in love with that. And that I'm a tremendous fan of. I'm a tremendous fan of so many of the people I've worked with. Rob Flynn from Machine Head,
Whoa.
Clown from Slipknot, it was a great experience
Mhm.
in the 7 years I was at Roadrunner. And that really that made me love metal.
That's so well said, because as you said, people and the charisma of the personalities in this niche are just absolutely, outstanding. And it's, I guess not many people are fortunate enough to just experience what it's like to even just communicate with these people, and to, it's so inspiring and motivational personally for me. So, I can imagine for you being in touch with such significant figures is very much the same.
Well, and also I had worked in other genres. I'd worked in hip hop and pop, and those people didn't work as hard as the people in metal did.
Oh, interesting.
Those people, it was more like lifestyle oriented, and I just, you would ask them to do something, they would show up late. My rock bands, they wanted to win, and they would do what was asked of them in order to win.